And if you have your eye on classes for summer and or fall semester, I encourage you to go ahead and get a seat for both semesters. Things like microbiology, if you have to take that course, will fill quickly. They typically do not open extra sections or force add extra people in if the section is full. So if you plan on taking that, you might want to go ahead and snag yourself a seat. Tuesday, of course, is our exam. That covers chapters 20 on the lymphatic, 21 on respiratory, 22 on digestive. The format's pretty much the same as what you've seen so far. There's 60 multiple choice. There are 4 essays. One of them is just straight out an essay you do. It's a tracing. It's actually posted on D2L. And then, of course, there's 3 other options there that each of them have choices. This is what I consider the make it or break it test, since we have 5 exams in here. If you haven't passed the first 2 exams, it's really critical to pass this third one to have an overall average that can move into the passing range. If you'd like for me to play the numbers game with you, let me know and I'll look at where you're currently standing and see what you need in order to pass this class. At least 6.5 is the cutoff you see, and that's where the overall average has to stand come May. Wednesday is the last day to withdraw from this course. That, of course, is a W for the course. If you decide to withdraw next week, or the following week, whether at some point, the registrar's office places a WF on your transcript, and actually that translates to the same thing as having earned an F out of the course. So it's rather important to think about whether or not you want to stay with the course for the long haul or drop the course by this date here. So by Monday, of course, or Tuesday rather, you'll have your grades posted in D2L, so you'll have at least a day to think about your overall average and make that decision if it's necessary. Alright, I just want to kind of tell you about what's coming up. We have Chapter 23, which is metabolism. Chapter 24 is the urinary system. Chapter 25 is 2 big topics. It's partly acid-base, it's partly fluid electrolyte. 26 is the reproductive system. That's what we have left to cover. Because of the snow days at the beginning of the semester, we're about a day, day and a half behind at this point. What I'm going to do then is, looking at those remaining chapters, we certainly don't want to skimp on the urinary system. We don't want to skimp on acid-base fluid electrolyte. So where I figure I can kind of nip and tuck a little bit of the information is Chapter 23. So instead of covering it word for word, we're going to actually skim the highlights next Thursday. And then we're probably going to try to get into urinary system that day as well. So after your test on Tuesday, if you have an opportunity, just thumb through Chapter 23, mark what doesn't make sense, highlight it, circle it. That way, when we talk through the chapter, you can tell me what you need to hear, and that way we hit the highlights for you and don't worry about all the other stuff in there. So we're really going to skim Chapter 23 and try to get into Chapter 24. Alright, so what kind of questions do you have about Chapters 20, 21, and 22 so far?
Transport of carbon dioxide.
What specifically? How it happens, or?
Pulmonary unloading.
Pulmonary unloading. Basically what you've got is 3 main mechanisms for carbon dioxide transport. Let's stick with the most common type of transport, which is a bicarb. Exactly. So this is actually getting you more into acid base than you need to. But bicarbonate is HCO3 with a little negative charge. We have to get carbon dioxide from this form back into a gaseous form so you can exhale it. So right now, we're in the capillary of the bloodstream. Okay, so we're in a capillary inside wrapped around an alveolar air sac in the lungs. Sitting right here would be an alveolus. This bicarbonate ion has to transform into what we call carbonic acid. It's kind of an unstable middleman, and then carbonic acid will then turn into carbon dioxide and water. The carbon dioxide moves by diffusion into your alveolus so you can exhale it. The water that's also made, well, that was part of your blood plasma, so it stays put. Some of that water may move by diffusion. You know, we can exhale off some of that water steam vapor, but for the most part, the water stays in the blood plasma, and the gas actually diffuses off so you can exhale it. At this point, we say carbon dioxide is being unloaded from the bloodstream into the air so we can exhale it. The whole process is diffusion-based. We have a higher concentration of diffusion in your pulmonary capillaries, lower in the alveolus, so it's naturally going to unload into that area so that we can exhale it. Since this is only a simple squamous layer of tissue for your capillaries and for your alveolus, we're really talking about no more than about 3 layers of cells that we have to transport that gas across. So that's the major type of export for carbon dioxide. I wouldn't really worry with hemoglobin since that's more of a minor method of transport or dissolved in the water itself. Is that kind of what you're looking for? Okay. How about other questions from chapters 20, 21, or 22? I can't recall any on there. I'll take a look when I get back to my office, and if there's anything specific you should look at, I'll post it on DQL. I can't remember off the top of my head that I've got anything posted on there. How about other questions? How are you feeling with the material?
Loading carbon dioxide?
Yeah, if you're loading carbon dioxide, you're not in an alveolus, but you're rather, this would be a body cell, a somatic cell, and you'd be actually taking the carbon dioxide from your cells, placing it into the bloodstream. So at that point, if this was a body cell, you would say that we're going to be loading carbon dioxide during internal respiration, and at that point, it breaks down and forms bicarbonate ions. And the other byproduct is the hydrogen, which actually acidifies the bloodstream. So yeah, it's just reverse if you're talking all the body cells and tissues.
I don't really get it. Like I don't know. Like it's just not. I don't know if it's not thinking or like I'm not.
Take it from the simple first. Let's just say, what are you doing in your lungs? In your lungs, you breathe in O2, you breathe out CO2. Okay, so let's go back and say that this is a lung, alveolar air sac. So, keeping in mind the big picture here, all you're doing in the lungs is taking carbon dioxide and exhaling it. It comes most commonly from a bicarbonate form to carbon dioxide gaseous form. This is dissolved in the blood plasma, so you have to move it out of the blood plasma into the air so you can exhale it. It's just a chemical reaction, that's all that we're talking about here. So during your external respiration, when you're breathing, all you're doing is exhaling off the CO2, and at the same time, you're loading your oxygen, and let's see, come along through here is a red blood cell, and you load that oxygen into the bloodstream on a red blood cell. So all this is just a gas exchange. So I'm thinking more in terms of the big picture than getting hung up with the chemical reaction, because chemical reaction we'll get to later.
So the hydrogen molecule just sits there and just makes it more acidic?
Yeah.
Does it combine to anything?
No, it's just dissolved in the blood plasma. Right. It was bound to this as carbonic acid, but carbonic acid is unstable, so that's why the hydrogen breaks off, and then it's free.
So if you had more of the hydrogen molecule in the blood, is that when the pH goes
pH goes
down?
down. Yeah, the more hydrogens you have, the more acidic your pH becomes. Right, right. And so that's when you breathe faster, because the faster you breathe, the faster the gas exchange occurs, and that way you can hyperventilate and blow off the excess carbon dioxide. How about other questions on this stuff? This is external respiration that we're looking at right here. Internal respiration is just the opposite. Instead of unloading CO2 out of the blood and into the air, during internal respiration, what are we doing? Loading it from the tissues into the bloodstream. So what you see with internal respiration is completely reversed from what you find in external respiration. How about other questions?